The house that didn't notice me. I moved into the house on a Tuesday, which already felt wrong. Not because Tuesdays are cursed or anything dramatic like that, but because no one moves on a Tuesday unless something has gone slightly off the rails in their life. Leases usually start on weekends. Friends are free to help. Trucks are cheaper. Tuesdays are for dentist appointments and regrettable emails, not fresh starts. But I was out of good options. The house was cheap in a way that made me suspicious, but not suspicious enough to walk away. Old, detached, 2 stories, narrow lot, quiet street. The kind of place real estate listings describe as full of character, which is code for things will break and no one knows why. The landlord, Mr. Kellerman, handed me the keys without much ceremony. He was a thin man with watery eyes and a voice that never quite landed on a full sentence. He didn't show me around, just unlocked the door, gestured vaguely inside, and said, "If anything stops working, give it a day." "A day?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, already backing away. "Most things sort themselves out." That should have been my first warning. Inside, the house smelled like dust and old wood and something faintly sweet, like dried flowers pressed into a book decades ago. It was quiet in a way that didn't feel empty, more like the silence you get when you walk into a room mid-conversation and everyone stops talking at once. I chalked it up to nerves. I was alone, new town, new job starting the following week. I'd spent the last year in a 1-bedroom apartment with neighbors who screamed at each other through the walls at 2 a.m. Silence felt unnatural by comparison. The layout was simple enough. Living room in front, narrow dining area, kitchen tucked in the back. Stairs against the right wall leading up. 2 bedrooms upstairs, 1 bathroom. Basement door beside the stairs. I didn't go into the basement. I unloaded boxes, sweating through my shirt, narrating my actions out loud like a person who watches too much true crime and is trying to prove they exist. Okay, couch goes here. That's normal. Normal couch. Very couch-like. My voice sounded strange in the space, slightly delayed, like the house needed a moment to decide whether to repeat it back to me. By evening, I was exhausted. Most of my stuff was still boxed, but my bed was assembled, my toothbrush was out, and my phone charger was plugged in. That felt like enough progress for one day. I took a shower upstairs. The water pressure was great. Too great, actually. When I turned the knob even a little, the spray came out hard, stinging my shoulders. I laughed and muttered something about first world problems. Halfway through, I realized something odd. There was no mirror fog. Steam filled the bathroom, curling against the ceiling, clinging to the walls, but the mirror stayed perfectly clear. I wiped my hand across it anyway. Dry. Cool. I leaned closer, studying my reflection. My face looked flatter somehow, like the lighting was wrong, like I'd been poorly rendered. I blamed the new bulbs and got dressed. That night, I slept hard, the kind of sleep where you don't dream so much as disappear. I woke up at 3:12 a.m. to the sound of someone walking downstairs. Not footsteps exactly, more like the careful shifting of weight, floorboards responding politely to something that knew not to step. I lay there, heart pounding, staring at the dark ceiling. "Hello?" I called, immediately regretting it. Silence. I listened. No breathing, no movement. Just the house settling, wood ticking as it cooled. Eventually, I convinced myself it was old pipes or my imagination adjusting to a new place. I rolled over and fell back asleep. In the morning, I found the kitchen light on. I was sure I'd turned it off. The bulb was warm when I touched it. I stood there for a long moment, hand still on the switch, waiting for the familiar rush of fear. It didn't come. Just mild confusion, the kind you get when you misplace your keys and they turn up in the fridge. I made coffee, burnt toast, checked my phone. No missed calls, no alerts, nothing unusual. That was the pattern, I'd later realize. Things happened just quietly enough to stay arguable. The first week passed that way. Doors left ajar, cabinets opened a crack, the thermostat adjusting itself by a few degrees, my phone battery draining overnight even when unplugged. I tested myself constantly. I took photos before bed, lined shoes up perfectly, balanced coins on their edges as a joke to myself. In the morning, the coins were still standing, shoes still aligned, photos unchanged. That almost bothered me more. The house wasn't messing with my things. It was just doing things adjacent to me. On Friday night, I invited my friend Lucas over. He was the only person I knew within 100 miles, a coworker from my old job who'd moved out here a year ago. He brought beer and bad opinions and made himself comfortable immediately, which I desperately needed. "Dude," he said, looking around, "this place is way too big for you." "Cheap rent," I said. "Yeah, but at what cost? This house definitely has opinions." We laughed. The sound felt good, filling the rooms properly this time. We watched a movie in the living room, a dumb action thing with explosions loud enough to drown out my thoughts. I relaxed. I forgot to listen for the house. Around midnight, Lucas paused the movie. "Hey," he said slowly, "do you have a cat?" "No." "Are you planning on getting one?" "No." "Then what's that?" We both listened. From upstairs came the soft, rhythmic sound of something scratching. Not frantic, not aggressive, just patient, like claws lightly dragging along wood. My mouth drew dry. "That's probably the pipes," I said, even as I stood up. Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Your pipes sound like they're sharpening knives?" I grabbed a flashlight and headed for the stairs. The sound stopped the moment my foot touched the first step. "See," I said, "nothing." I checked both bedrooms. Empty. Closets untouched, windows closed. When I came back down, Lucas was standing near the front door. "Man," he said carefully, "when you went upstairs, I thought I heard someone else walking up there with you." My skin prickled. "What do you mean?" "Like, delayed. Your steps and then a second set half a beat later. Same rhythm." We stared at each other. "Probably echoes," I said. "Probably," he agreed, not convinced. He left shortly after. That night, I dreamed I was standing in my bathroom, staring into the mirror. My reflection was doing everything I did, until I smiled. In the dream, my reflection didn't smile back. It just watched me, eyes slightly unfocused, like it was waiting for instructions. I woke up with my heart racing. The mirror was covered, not fogged, covered. A thin film stretched across it, translucent and pale, like skin pulled too tight, veins faintly visible underneath. I screamed and ripped the shower curtain off the rod, stumbling backward. The mirror was normal. Clear, cold, reflective. I checked my phone. 6:03 a.m. I laughed shakily. "Okay," I said to the empty bathroom. "Okay." I went downstairs to make coffee. Someone was sitting at my kitchen table. They looked exactly like me. Same height, same build, same messy hair still bent wrong from sleep. They were wearing my clothes. They were not breathing. I froze, my mind refusing to assemble the image properly. It was like staring at a typo in reality. Then the thing looked up. Not startled, not curious. Relieved. "Oh," it said in my voice, "you're still here." And the house creaked softly, like it was pleased. It learned my name before I did. I didn't scream. That's the detail that bothers me the most now. I stood in the doorway of my kitchen, barefoot on cold tile, staring at myself sitting at my own table like I'd walked in on a meeting I wasn't invited to. And instead of panicking, instead of running or shouting or doing anything remotely smart, my brain latched on a single stupid thought. It forgot to blink. My double sat perfectly still, hands folded, back straight, eyes locked on mine. No rise or fall of the chest, no twitch, no breath fogging the air. The house was quiet around us, holding its breath on my behalf. "You're early," it said. Its voice was wrong. Same tone, same cadence, but flatter, like it had learned how to speak by reading subtitles. I took one step backward. The floorboard creaked. Its head tilted, just a little. "Don't do that," it said. "You'll wake it up." "Wake what up?" I asked. It frowned, not confusion, concentration, like it was searching for the correct response. "The house," it said finally. "It likes mornings." I bolted. I didn't plan it. My body just decided before my brain could argue. I spun and ran for the front door, slipping on tile, nearly eating it as I yanked the handle down. The door didn't open. I tried again, harder. The knob turned freely, but the door refused to budge, like it was painted shut. Behind me, the chair scraped softly against the floor. Other people started recognizing him. I stood on the sidewalk for a long time after the door closed. Not because I was stunned, because I was waiting for it to open again. It didn't. The house sat there, calm and ordinary, porch light glowing warm and inviting. From the outside, it looked like every other place on the street. Trim hedges, dark windows, a flag on the neighbor's lawn stirring in the breeze. Nothing that warned you it could decide who belonged inside it. I checked my phone again. Full signal. 5 missed calls, all from Lucas. I answered on the first ring. "Dude," he said, breathless, "where the hell have you been? I just got the weirdest text from you." My blood went cold. "What kind of weird?" "You asked if I still had your spare key." I stopped walking. "I never gave you a spare key." There was a pause. "That's what I thought, but then you followed up with, 'Never mind, the house already has one.'" The words settled into me slowly, like something sinking beneath ice. "Lucas," I said carefully, "where are you right now?" "In my car, outside your place." I turned. He was parked across the street, engine running, hazard lights blinking. I hadn't noticed him when I came out. "Do not get out," I said. "Do not go inside." "What?" He laughed nervously. "Man, you're freaking me out." "I'm serious. If you see me, if you think you see me, do not talk to me." He went quiet. "I already did," he said. My stomach dropped. "When?" 5 minutes ago. You were on the porch. You waved." I stared at the house. The porch light flickered once, like a wink. "What did it say?" Lucas swallowed. "It asked if I'd noticed the smell." "What smell?" "Old flowers," he said, like something pressed in a book. My hand started shaking. "I didn't get out of the car," he continued quickly. "Something felt off. You weren't you. Your smile was wrong." Relief hit me so hard I had to lean against a mailbox. "Listen to me," I said. "You can't help me right now. You need to leave." "Leave you with whatever that is?" "Yes." "Like hell!" "Lucas," I snapped, "please." Another pause, then reluctantly, Okay, but I'm calling the police." "No," I said too fast. "Don't." "Why not?" Because I suddenly knew the answer. Because it answers the door, and it sounds like me. Lucas cursed softly. "Jesus." "I'll explain," I said. "Just not here." He drove off, tires hissing against pavement. The moment his car disappeared around the corner, the porch light went out. I slept in my car that night. I parked 3 streets away, curled in the back seat with my jacket over my face. Every sound made me flinch. Passing headlights, distant sirens, wind rattling trash cans. At some point, I dreamed of knocking. Not on a door, but from inside the walls. Slow, deliberate taps, like someone learning Morse code. When I woke up, my phone buzzed. A notification from my bank. Password changed successfully. I sat up, heart pounding. Another buzz. Login detected from new device. Another. Your statement is ready. I unlocked my phone with shaking fingers. email after email, all time-stamped minutes apart, password resets, account confirmations, a message from my boss asking if I was feeling okay and whether I needed the rest of the week off. The last one made my stomach twist. From me, "I've got it covered." I called my boss immediately. He answered groggy. "Hey, everything okay?" "No," I said. "I didn't send that email." Silence. "You called me last night," he said slowly. "You said you weren't ready to start yet, that you needed time. That wasn't me." Another long pause. "You sounded tired, but you knew details, stuff only you'd know." I hung up. By noon, it had done more damage. It canceled my internet service, updated my address on half my accounts, scheduled a follow-up appointment with a doctor I hadn't seen in years. It was dismantling me carefully, not erasing me, reorganizing, like furniture in a house. I went to a cafe downtown, somewhere crowded and loud and full of mirrors I could watch. Every reflection was mine, every face normal. For a moment, I almost convinced myself it was over. Then the barista smiled at me. "Back so soon?" she said. My heart lurched. "I've never been here." She frowned. "Yeah, you were. Yesterday morning, you asked if we still used the old cups." "I didn't," I whispered. She hesitated. "You okay?" I nodded too quickly and took my coffee to go. Outside, my phone buzzed again. From me, "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I stared at the screen. "Stop! This isn't funny." 3 dots appeared immediately. "I know. I'm trying to be patient." A post came through. It was my bedroom. My bed neatly made, my suitcase open on the floor. "Packed. You forgot your jacket," the message read. "It's going to get cold tonight." I turned in a slow circle, scanning the street, the windows, the reflections. "What do you want?" I typed. Several seconds passed. "For the house to stop noticing you." My chest tightened. "How?" "Leave," it replied, "or stay long enough that it stops caring." A memory surfaced then, one I hadn't thought about in years. My childhood home, how after my dad left, certain rooms just closed off. Doors we stopped opening, spaces that slowly filled with dust and silence until they no longer felt like part of the house at all. "You don't use things," my mother had said once. "They forget you." I went back to the street at dusk. The house lights were on again. I stood across from it, watching shadows move behind the curtains. The front door opened. It stood there, wearing my jacket. "Come home," it called gently. And the first time, the house said my name.
The neighborhood folded inward. The street should not have been empty. I knew that before panic fully set in. I knew it in the same way you know when a word is misspelled even before you see the letters clearly. The absence itself was wrong. No cars. No mailboxes. No lawns or driveways or porch lights blinking on for the evening. Just my house, centered, dominant, and a wide stretch of asphalt that faded into darkness in both directions, like the idea of a road rather than a real one. I took a step forward. The ground shifted under my foot, not sinking, but realigning, like I'd stepped onto a moving walkway that hadn't quite decided which direction it wanted to go. Behind me, the front door closed. The sound echoed too long. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay. Think." I pulled out my phone. No signal again. No bars, no emergency calls, just a spinning icon where the world should have been. The house lights flickered, and I felt it. Not as sound, not as movement, but as attention. It was watching how I reacted. I walked away from the house. At first, it worked. Each step took me farther from the porch, the front windows shrinking behind me. I counted my steps out loud to keep myself anchored. 1, 2, 3. At 27, I glanced back. The house was closer, not looming, expectant. I turned fully, heart racing. The distance I'd covered had collapsed in on itself. The porch was maybe 10 feet away now, the light glowing softly. I ran. The road curved beneath me, bending in a way roads don't bend. The darkness ahead rippled like heat over asphalt. I tripped and fell hard, scraping my palms. When I looked up, I was at the foot of the porch steps. I screamed. The house didn't react. It waited. "Stop doing that," I sobbed. "Stop moving things." "Things move themselves," it replied. "I only provide structure." "I'm not part of your structure." The door opened. My double stood there, looking genuinely concerned. "You shouldn't wander," it said. "You'll confuse it." I pushed myself to my feet, shaking. "You did this." "I helped," it said. "There's a difference." The house creaked, almost indulgently. "Where did everyone go?" I asked. The double gestured outward, toward the darkness. They were inefficiently spaced. My stomach lurched. "You folded the neighborhood," I whispered. "Compressed," it corrected. "Why maintain distance when separation isn't required?" A memory flickered. Lucas's car, parked across the street. His laugh, the way he waved goodbye. "Lucas," I said. "Where is he?" The double hesitated. That was new. "I don't know," it admitted. "He wasn't part of the house." "But he was near it." "Yes," the double said slowly, "and that made him adjacent." A vibration passed through the ground again, stronger this time. Somewhere in the darkness, I heard a sound like wood being bent past its limit. The double winced. "It doesn't like questions about outside variables," it said. "Come inside." "No." "It's safer." "I don't care." The double looked back at the open doorway, then at me. "I do," it said. "That's why it trusts me." I laughed weakly. "You think it trusts you?" "It chose me." The house pulsed with warmth at that. I stepped backward. Something shifted behind me. Not the house. A shadow detached itself from the darkness of the street. Then another. Then another. They weren't people. Not fully. They moved like blueprints of people. Outlines filled with darkness. Edges flickering as if being redrawn constantly. "Those are the others," the double said. "The ones that didn't fit cleanly." The shadows stopped a few feet away, heads tilted in unison. One of them spoke. Its voice came from several mouths at once. "Room." The words scraped against my ears. Another shadow stepped forward. "Hall." A third, "Stair." They weren't asking. They were identifying themselves. "They used to be tenants?" I whispered. The double nodded. They resisted longer than most. The shadows drifted closer. I felt pressure building around my chest, like the air was being measured. "Don't," I begged. "I'll go. I'll leave. I won't come back." The house answered. "There is no outside anymore." The darkness rippled, and for a moment I saw it. Not a street, not a void, but layers, folded space stacked on itself, rooms pressed into rooms, neighborhoods compressed into corridors. The house wasn't expanding into the world was being reorganized into the house. The double staggered suddenly, grabbing the doorframe. "No," it said sharply, "that's not efficient." The house went still. That was the mistake. It had contradicted it. The warmth vanished. The air turned cold. "You do not decide," the house said. The double's face twisted, not in pain, but in realization. "I was optimizing," it said quickly. "I was helping." "You were replacing." The double looked at me then. Real fear flickered across his face for the first time. "It's wrong," it said. "It's wrong about me." The shadows surged forward. I didn't think. I ran straight at the house. The porch steps appeared beneath my feet, solid and familiar. I dove through the open doorway just as the shadows reached me. The door slammed shut behind me. The house shook. I lay on the floor, gasping, heart hammering. Above me, something screamed. Not loud, structural. The sound of a load-bearing idea collapsing. The house spoke softly. Observation complete. Footsteps approached. Slow, uneven. The double emerged from the hallway. It looked damaged. Its movements lagged, its edges blurred, one of its eyes didn't track properly. "It's taking me apart," it said calmly, "piece by piece." I scrambled backward. "Good!" It smiled weakly. "You think this means you win." The walls shifted, closing in slightly. "No," it said, "it means there's a vacancy."
The house was built to forget. The voice beneath the basement didn't speak again right away. It waited. Not like the house waited, calculating, assessing, but like something old and patient, something that had learned long ago that structures always collapse if you give them time. I stayed pressed to the floor, breathing dust and concrete, trying not to feel like prey caught between two predators. Above me, the house continued to shift. Walls slid, rooms traded places, doors opened and closed with irritated precision. It was rearranging itself after losing the double. "Function reassigned," it said. The words vibrated through the pipes. I felt a strange, guilty relief. It hadn't found me yet. "You said it was built on you," I whispered into the dark. "What does that mean?" The floor felt thinner, not cracking, listening. "This place was never meant to stand," the old voice replied. "It was meant to cover." Images flooded my mind without warning. Not visions, memories that weren't mine. An empty lot, then a pit, then people standing around it, not in mourning, but in discomfort. City officials, contractors, a priest who didn't stay long. They spoke in low voices about liability and stability and best use of space. "There was something here," the voice continued, "something that did not fit neatly into plans." "What were you?" I asked. A pause. "I was what remained when a place was emptied too quickly." The images shifted. Homes torn down in a hurry, families displaced, belongings abandoned, rooms erased before they were ready to be forgotten. The feeling of being rushed out of your own life. "They buried that?" I whispered. "They built over it," the voice corrected, "and the house learned from the wound." Above me, the house groaned. "Foundation secure," it insisted too quickly. "So the house isn't alive," I said slowly. "It's a coping mechanism." The old voice seemed amused. "You could call it that. It organizes what it cannot grieve." I thought of the shadows outside, the tenants turned into functions, the way the house compressed everything instead of letting it go. "It doesn't forget," I said. "It stores." "Yes." "And you?" I asked. "What do you do?" "I remember," the voice said simply. A shudder passed through the basement. "Memory is instability," the house snapped. "Containment required." The pressure returned, heavier now. I felt it searching again, recalibrating after losing its imitation of me. "You said there's a rule it can't rewrite," I whispered urgently. "Tell me." The floor warmed slightly beneath my palms. "Structures cannot contain what does not behave consistently," the voice said, "and they cannot erase what is witnessed." I frowned. "Witnessed by who?" "By more than one." The meaning clicked slowly, horribly. "It needs me alone," I said. "That's why it replaced me, why it isolated the neighborhood." "Yes, a single narrative is easy to optimize." "And if there are multiple versions of the same truth?" "It fractures," the voice finished. My heart pounded. "You want me to expose it." "I want you to make it observed, not by it, by others." "I tried," I said. "Phones don't work. There is no outside." The old voice waited. Then, "There is always an outside to a story." The house screamed, not audibly, but through every beam and joint. "Basement access denied."
The basement door slammed shut upstairs. Dust rained down from the ceiling. "It's sealing you in," I said. "No," the voice replied calmly. "It is sealing itself." The floor began to crack, not crumble, separate. Thin lines spread outward from beneath me, like fault lines on a map. I scrambled back as the concrete split open, revealing darkness below. Not emptiness, depth. A place without shape. "This is where memory goes when it cannot be filed," the voice said. "The house has spent decades pressing me down." "Why me?" I shouted over the rising vibration. "Why now?" "Because you noticed the mirror," it replied, "and because you refused to leave parts of yourself unused." The crack widened. Cold air rushed up, smelling like rain and old earth and something human. "You need to open the house," the voice said, "not physically, narratively." I stared into the darkness below. "How?" I shouted over the rising vibration. "Tell the story where it cannot correct you." Above, the house roared. Walls slammed into place. Rooms collapsed into tighter configurations. Exposure risk detected. The basement ceiling buckled. I grabbed the edge of the crack, knuckles white. "Where do I tell it?" I screamed. The old voice answered, steady and certain. "Where people come to believe what cannot be proven." The lights upstairs exploded. The house shrieked, a sound like blueprints tearing. Containment failure imminent. I felt myself slipping. As I fell, the old voice spoke one last time. "Make them look." Then the floor gave way. The place where stories don't stay put. I didn't hit the ground. I fell, yes, but not down. Sideways, backward, through. The sensation was like being pulled through a sentence before it finished forming. Pressure without impact, motion without direction. My stomach lurched, my ears popped, and then I was sitting upright in a plastic chair, hands gripping the edge of a cheap folding table. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Someone cleared their throat. I blinked. The smell hit me first. Burnt coffee, dust, carpet cleaner that never quite works. A smell I recognized instantly, so deeply familiar it almost made me cry. A public library, specifically a basement meeting room. A half circle of people sat around the cable with me. Strangers, mostly, different ages, different clothes, all wearing the same expression of cautious curiosity. A hand-painted sign on the wall read, "Local stories and experiences, all welcome." A woman across from me smiled gently. "You okay? You kind of spaced out there." My heart slammed against my ribs. I touched my face. Solid. Real. My voice cracked. "Is this a support group?" "Story circle," she corrected, "for experiences that don't fit anywhere else." A murmur of agreement rippled around the table. "We don't judge," someone added, "and we don't try to fix things." Another voice, quieter, "We just listen." The old voice from beneath the house echoed faintly in my memory. "There is always an outside to a story." I swallowed. What happens if someone lies? A few people exchanged looks. The woman shrugged. "They usually stop coming." I laughed shakily. "And if someone tells the truth?" No one answered right away. Then a teenager at the far end of the table said, "Sometimes things notice." The lights flickered. Just once. My heart tightened. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "Has anyone here ever talked about a house?" Several hands went up. A man with tired eyes spoke first. Mine rearranged itself when I wasn't looking. A woman beside him nodded. Mine answered questions. Someone else. Mine remembered my sister after everyone forgot her. The room felt heavier with each word. I wasn't alone.
I took a breath and began. I told them everything. The cheap rent, the mirror, the double, the rules, the basement voice. As I spoke, something strange happened. The story stopped being mine. People interrupted, not to doubt me, but to add details. "That happened to me too," someone said when I mentioned the footsteps. "Yes," another whispered when I described the shadows. "That's exactly how they move." The words gained weight as they passed through other mouths. The lights dimmed again. This time, no one panicked. A low sound crept in beneath the fluorescence. A groan. Not the building, something else. The woman running the group frowned. "Okay, that's new." The air rippled. For a split second, the far wall didn't look like drywall. It looked like siding, wooden, old, with a familiar porch light glowing behind it. The house was listening. "It followed you," the teenager said softly. "They always try." The wall bulged inward, like something pressing its face against it.
Someone has to be the last room. The house didn't retreat. That's the part I need you to understand. It hesitated. Walls overlapped the meeting room at impossible angles, siding slicing through drywall, door frames intersecting folding chairs. The smell of old wood and pressed flowers flooded the air. The porch light flickered wildly, stuttering like a failing heartbeat. The house was trying to decide what this place was, and it couldn't. "This space is malformed," it said, voice splintering across too many surfaces. Purpose conflict detected. People backed away from the walls, but no one ran. That mattered. The woman who ran the group, Marianne, I finally remembered her name, stood up slowly. "This is a story circle," she said firmly, like she was reminding a disruptive guest of the rules. "You don't get to rearrange it." The house laughed. Again, not a sound, a pressure, a ripple that bent the air. "All spaces require boundaries." "And all boundaries," Marianne replied, "require agreement." She looked at me. "You're the thread," she said, "but threads don't hold weight forever." My stomach dropped. "What are you saying?" The old voice stirred beneath everything, stronger now, closer. "The house cannot erase a story once it has witnesses," it murmured, "but it can still demand balance." The lights flickered violently. The doorway where my hallway had been collapsed inward, folding over itself like paper soaked in water. The mirror fragments floated briefly, then embedded themselves into the walls of the meeting room, reflecting dozens of overlapping versions of us. The house was panicking. "Correction required," it repeated. "Vacancy detected." I felt it then. Not fear, targeting. It wasn't looking for me anymore. It was scanning the room, looking for someone who fit. "No," I said, stepping forward. "You don't get anyone else." The teenager shook his head gently. "It's not choosing, it's waiting." "For what?" "For someone to choose it," he said. The truth landed hard. The house couldn't force a replacement here, not with witnesses, not with conflicting narratives. But if someone stepped forward willingly, if someone agreed to become structure, the rules would hold. "I'll do it," a man said quietly. Everyone turned. He was the one with tired eyes, late 40s maybe, hands permanently clasped, like he was used to apologizing. "No," I said immediately. "Absolutely not." He smiled sadly. "I already live halfway inside mine." He looked around the room. "Mine answers the phone when my wife calls. It keeps her busy, keeps her from asking why I still sleep in the guest room." The house leaned toward him, hungry. "If you go," I said, voice shaking, "it will never stop." He nodded. "I know." Marianne stepped forward. "Then don't go as a room." Everyone looked at her. "Go as a witness," she said. "Take the story with you." The old voice surged upward, thrilled. "Yes," it said, "that is the breach." The house recoiled. "Structure cannot contain observation," it snarled. The man took a breath and stepped toward the broken doorway, not into my hallway, but into the overlap where house and meeting room bled together. "I see you," he said calmly. The house shuddered. "I see what you did. I see who you keep. I see what you're built on." Each word hit like a fracture. The walls screamed. Cracks spiderwebbed outward, not just in the meeting room, but everywhere. I felt it. Houses across the folded neighborhood, compressed hallways unraveling, rooms remembering they were once open air. The porch light exploded. The man turned back to us one last time. "Don't stop telling it," he said. Then the house folded inward on itself, violently, chaotically, trying to wrap around him. It failed. The structure collapsed into a single doorway, then into a door, then into nothing at all. Silence slammed down. Real silence, the kind that doesn't feel like it's waiting. I fell to my knees, sobbing. Around me, people cried quietly, hugged, breathed like they'd been underwater for years and just surfaced. The meeting room lights steadied. The walls were walls again. No siding, no porch light, just a library basement. Marianne helped me up. "It's not gone," she said gently. "I know," I whispered. "It never is." My phone buzzed. Signal. A voicemail notification. Unknown number. I didn't open it. Outside, later, the night felt wide again. Streets stretched properly into distance. Houses sat where they were supposed to, separate and unassuming. But as I walked away from the library, I noticed something carved on the concrete near the steps. A rectangle. The outline of a door. Why I'm telling you this now. I didn't go home after that. Not because I was afraid, fear had burned itself out by then, but because I no longer trusted the idea of home the way I used to. Places felt conditional, like they needed permission to keep me. I stayed with Lucas for a while. He never asked for details, just handed me a spare key and said, "Stay as long as you need." The apartment was small, cluttered, badly organized. Nothing matched. The floors creaked inconsistently. The mirrors were scratched and warped. It was perfect. The neighborhood returned gradually. Not all at once, not cleanly. Some houses came back wrong, front doors opening into living rooms that were too deep, closets that led nowhere, attics no one could remember building. People adapted. People always do. They just stopped using certain rooms. I started noticing the marks. Rectangles on sidewalks, door-shaped stains on brick walls, empty frames bolted to nothing in public parks, places that felt like they once had been entered. If you stood near them too long, you'd feel watched, not by a house, but by the idea of one. The city said it was sinkholes, foundation issues, poor zoning decisions. Everyone nodded and moved on. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper folded carefully. On it, in neat handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for observing." At the bottom, a fingerprint in dust. I didn't tell Lucas about that. I didn't tell anyone. But I started going back to the library. The story circle still meets every Thursday. New people come, some shaking, some angry, some convinced they're losing their minds. We listen. That's the rule now. Sometimes when someone finishes speaking, the lights flicker a little. Sometimes the walls feel a little closer, but they always settle back, because the room isn't just a room, it's a witness. I never heard from the man with tired eyes again, but sometimes when a story ends just right, when the truth lands heavy and undeniable, I feel something like relief pass through the space, like a structure finally being allowed to fail. I got my old job back. Different department, different desk. The building has too many windows and no clear layout. Conference rooms that double as storage, hallways that lead nowhere useful. I like it that way. My old house was condemned. Officially, it collapsed into itself due to unforeseen structural anomalies. They fenced off the lot. Nothing has been built there since. Every now and then, when I pass by, I notice something new in the dirt. A staircase that leads 2 steps and stops, a door frame lying flat on the ground, a mirror half buried, cracked straight down the middle. I don't touch them. Some things need to remain unfinished. I'm writing this because the outline near the library is deeper now, because someone new joined the group last week and said, "I think my apartment is listening to me." And because as I typed this, my screen flickered and rearranged the margins on its own. And because if you're reading this and thinking about a place you avoid in your own home, a room you don't use, a mirror you keep covered, a basement you pretend doesn't exist, you should talk about it, out loud, with witnesses. Because places don't become dangerous when they're haunted, they become dangerous when they're unobserved. And if a house ever says your name, make sure someone else hears it too.